Hello, my friends. The podcast numbers have been, the audio version of this have been ticking up recently, so you guys have been sharing it, so thank you. Yeah, it's a beautiful day in Los Angeles today. We got a bunch of good questions. Got Jon coming on here in a second. How's everybody doing? As always, these will be up on YouTube tomorrow. We got clips over on the LiveWithMattRad Instagram, and the audio version as well, which I just mentioned, will be up in podcast form tomorrow. How you guys doing? Shout out to the Discord crew who's going crazy on here on the lives as well as on there, helping each other out and all of that. It's been great.
What's up, buddy?
Sorry, I texted you saying 12:02, but I don't think you got it. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I was already on here talking to the people.
I heard something about a UAD chain. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, no, I was like, what's a question that Jon is not going to talk about at all? No, somebody asked about the UAD console, and it's like a piece of software that still bothers me when I try to use it, and it has nothing to do with you. So figured I'd go through and say, I don't know. My answer is I don't know.
I miss you. I'm so stoked to be back today.
Hey, I miss you too, man. Well, we'll have to hang out. I'm going to be here for another few weeks, and then might be going on a little trip, which I'll talk to you about offline. But yeah, man, good to have you back. Good to be hanging. How are you? Are you working hard this week? You've been eating lots of good food on your Instagram.
Lots of good food. Two anniversary trips. One into New York, one to Santa Barbara. A lot of really good food, and a lot of good champagne too. And a lot of good work, honestly. Potentially one of the bigger projects of my career just came through. So
amazing.
Got one song for someone, and hopefully a couple more are coming through. We could talk about that when it comes out. It's good week. Good
nice times. Man. Well, you want to jump into? We got lots and lots of good questions. Some like broad philosophical things, some specific technical things. You want to do the usual?
Let's start with one of the broad philosophical ones.
I like these. Okay. I like this one from Iggy, and shout out Iggy, who's a big part of the Discord. Helped out with that early on. At what point in your career did you say, "I made it"? I got lots of answers for this one.
Oh my God, this is such a good question.
That's such a good question, right? You want me to go first? I can go first.
Yeah, you go first. Yeah.
There are like 3 or 4 pivotal moments, like signposts in my career that for me personally felt a certain way. The first one was recording on my Porta Studio, my Tascam 4-track cassette, when I figured out that I could record stereo guitars and that would sound like Nirvana. Like when I first discovered you could, and I remember I had a boom box. I basically had a drum loop and then recorded 2 stereo guitars, then went into my parents' in my parents' house in my room, took off the speakers from the little boom box I had, sat them next to my head and just listened to this loop over and over and over with stereo guitars. And that was the first time I realized I can do something, I can accomplish something that sounds like the music that I'm listening to. And that was actually, I wouldn't say that was the I made it moment, but that was the first moment where I was like, I can do something like this. I'd say the first moment where I felt like I really made something that impacted me emotionally was this band Street to Nowhere, my friend Dave Smallin from high school. When I was about 19, I recorded a song with him called Miss Rolling Eyes, which you can find on Spotify if you'd like. Street to Nowhere is the name of the band. And the drop into the last chorus has this like compression release with a low tom hit into a downbeat with all these harmonies, and it gave me chills. And it was the first thing that I ever made where I was like, this makes me feel like the recordings I listened to. And it was a funny moment because it was the first time, and nobody heard it at the time. It ultimately signed to a label, but it didn't really go anywhere. But it was a recording that I made. And this is important. Why I want to say this is it's an important thing to make things that make you believe you know what you're doing. Because as we talk about so much in these conversations, you'll make a lot of things that people won't understand. People will say no. You'll think you have the skill set and people won't pay you for it. You won't get what you deserve. And that's just part of the arc of having a career. But it's important to remember the moments and to feel the moments where you make something that you're really proud of, because ultimately you're going to have to do that over and over and over in order to have a career at this thing. So that was a moment for me when I was 18 or 19 where I made something where I was like, only in that one moment, I made a lot of other bad recordings after, but that was the first moment where I was like, I can compete on a big level. I'm making things that make me feel a certain way. And then I would say that the other moment was the first big One Direction song I had, which was not a validation creatively, but it was a validation business-wise that made me realize at 29, after, I've said this before, recording my first band when I was about 12. So 17 years in, making something that got recognized and had enough numbers where I go, okay, I've made it, meaning I'm going to have a career doing this. That was a validation of like, I know my work can be really good, but it's the first time where I'm like, okay, now I'm going to make enough money to have a career doing this. Because before that, it was, you'd make, as we've talked about, you get paid for something and then maybe you don't make any money for 4 months, and, looking at my savings and learning how to manage my money and all that kind of stuff. It was the first time where I was like, okay, I could probably do this for a few more decades. So anyway, those are my 3 moments. You got anything in that realm?
I learned something from you just now, just by listening to what you had to say. So I hope a lot of people, so I'll just reiterate that part and then I'll try to answer it myself, which is find the moments that you made something sound like something you were listening to. That's that's a big thing. I mean, I have a lot of those moments at this point that I can think back to, but those aren't as important because you've already said what's really important. So I'll try to come at the question a little bit differently.
You could answer the same way too. I'm curious what they are for you too. Just as a friend of yours, like, did you have that moment where you recorded something, you played something, you mixed something? Because you didn't start out as a mixer. You were doing a bit of everything and you ran a studio. Was there a point at which you said, okay, I think I know what I'm doing, or like, I think I can do this? Yeah,
the first time was an album that a friend of mine who comes on here pretty regularly, Joe Iadanza, was a folk artist, singer, songwriter from Long Island. That it was the first time I did an album from start to finish, same band, same artist, same studio, everything from start to finish, and then it went on iTunes. I think it was the first record I made. I was probably. If he comes on, he should answer how old I was, but I was either 19 or 20 at the time, and it was the first project, and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. I mean, I've wanted to do it forever, but it was the first time I knew it. And then let's just juxtapose that with my first Grammy nomination was Khalid Free Spirit album, which is the same thing from start to finish, the entire album. Obviously with a team on that. Those moments are like, wait, those two albums they're very different. One's like, singer-songwriter acoustic guitar, and one's pop R&B. But both of them sound very much like their genre. Like, to me, as good as that genre can potentially sound, like it's competitive. It's how I want it to sound. So let's just juxtapose those two together. But when I think about making it, I haven't yet. So I haven't. I've made it in the sense that you're talking about, and I've made it in the sense where this is going to be my career. And if it's not, that means I fucked up. Like, it's in my control completely. I have enough stable and deep relationships in the industry. I have enough output. I have enough reliability, consistency. It's on me if I fuck up. So I've made it in that sense where this is my job, and it will be, depending on myself, and there's no other parties. But I don't think I've made it. I don't think I've made it in my career because I'm still not consistently working at the level that I want to be working. As of this week, that could change. But I'll talk about that with you off mic and in the near future.
Yeah.
But this is if this week transpires and then the rest of my career took this shape, then I would tell you in a year from now that I made it. This is like something I wish I could talk about and be as honest as I can, but I can't for a lot of reasons. Yep. But I haven't made it. So I don't have an answer because I have it. I am just starting to learn how to live life simultaneously with career. So I think when I'm better at that, I'll have known that I've made it. I think you've been better at that for longer than I have. Got a couple more years on me, but I think you've just been better at it, which I look up to you for. Being, I don't want to even use the term workaholic, but in love with what we do and lucky to do what we do. So consistently wanting to do it as well as doing other things with our time, whether that's spending time with other people or alone doing other things outside. These are important to the making it question. So I think I'm just touching that portion of my life at 35 years old. So I don't think I made it.
That's a great answer. I think that the answer will change every 5 or 10 years, or it will evolve, and that, I feel like I gave a few stages of my career or my perspective on making music. And I bet 5 years from now, I will have another evolution of it that will make me feel better about the balance or the type of work I'm doing or how it relates to the rest of my life or something like that. So on some level, I don't think there is, as maybe to your point, I don't know if there is a moment where you just say, I've made it. Because at the point where you say I've made it is almost like saying I'm done.
Yeah.
I've made it is almost like saying I peaked.
Let's just answer Aiden's question. Yeah, that is the question. Do we need to make it? The answer is no.
Yeah.
My answer is no. Everyone might have a different one. My answer is no. I don't think you make it. I don't think you make anything. I don't think there is an outcome that is more superior than another, or like at the infinite level. I think the journey is the it, and I love the journey. I'm honored and thankful to be here, to be alive still, and to get to do this. So I think that's my vantage point consistently, as I'm sure it is for you as well. We deeply love what we do. So we ask this question, or Rory likes to ask this question on the Conversations podcast, like if all of, if you became financially free, you got all the money you wanted in the world, like, would you still be doing what you're doing? Or what would you be doing with your time? I would still mix records. Mixing records is the thing that gives me some sort of feeling of I hate using the word purpose, because I struggle with this word and concept in general. Like, what's the purpose of life? But I think I'm good at it, and it's something that I can give back to others in some sort of gift form, or offering happiness and the feeling of completion of song babies or ideas. So I think that I have something to offer when it comes to that. So I think that's a purpose to be here. So I would continue living out that quote unquote purpose. And that's why we do it. That's why I do it. So to say we made it would be false, because then we'll probably stop doing it for the same reasons.
A big part of doing this thing professionally is, over the course of your career, really wherever you are, trying to continue to dig and figure out why you're doing it. And those things change over the course of time as you evolve as a person. Presumably you're not the same person at 15 as you are at 25, as you are at 35, as you are at 60. So those things will change, but there's so many external and monetary capitalist goals that are set out there that are really obvious. We talked about this, I think, on another week, where, without naming names, there's a few very successful producer, writer people that have had huge hits, lots of number ones, that are just supremely unhappy because they want the next one to be number one and the next one to be number one. And so it's important, I think, for people to understand what it is within yourself that is enjoying the process of making things.
This is going to sound so lame, but one of my favorite feelings in the world is when I get the drums and the bass locked together.
It's my favorite thing. It is literally my favorite thing.
Right? There's something about that feeling when the kick and the bass and that backbeat are smacking and glued, and there's enough separation so you hear the tone of the kick, you feel the length of it, and the bass has tone and the drums hit. There's not that much that compares to that feeling. So I do it for that every time. No,
it's so funny when you said that. I mentioned this song called "Miss Rolling Eyes," a Street to Nowhere song I did when I was I think 18 or 19. And I still go back and listen to it periodically because there's a moment where the low end has this like downbeat, and it just has that, that thing, whatever that thing
it's
is.
So satisfying to the human being.
So satisfying.
So I look for those satisfying moments. That's why I love that you answered it that way. Like, what is making it? Oh, making something that, like, I've listened to records, you know, like last night. Yesterday is Prince's birthday. So I've never actually, I'm ashamed to admit this on Live with Matt Rad, but I've never seen Purple Rain. And neither had my girlfriend. So we watched it last night in celebration of Prince's birthday. And the minute you hear the beginning of Purple Rain at the finale, like, just tears. There's just like, there's something so satisfying about certain moments in music. And that's why I do it. So I don't know if I want to make it. I just want to land in those moments as often as possible.
There's some sort of cheesy answer that in my brain could be clever about making it is just making music. Like, making it is literally what it is music. As long as you're making it and you're enjoying it, it's the process. There's this idea, and I'm stealing this, I think, from Penn Jillette, where he said people talk about the ends justifying the means, that there really are no ends. There are only means. There's only process. There's only the journey of life. It's the journey and the process that you got to enjoy. It's like, you know, we've had songs that have hit charts, and those are, you got a Grammy nomination. Those sort of things are nice, and they're great validations, but they're validations of a process. That's the thing that you have to enjoy to be good at this thing and to be happy in your life making music, whether you do it professionally or not. Like, you have to be making things you enjoy, because otherwise, like, go work at a bank or something. I don't know. Like,
I mean, the homie Macklemore posted on Instagram today something like a list of things like, before I had this, I created. Before I had this, that created. Before I had an LLC, before I had a logo, I created. And now that I have this, I'm still creating. It's just like, that's what it is. You can't do it for any other reason but the fact that you need to create. I can't relate to another reason. We talk about this, like when I think 2 weeks ago I pushed back on you against the passion project versus the money project.
Sure, yeah.
Because money projects are passion projects, right? A lot of the time. I get why people would do it for the money. I mean, you need a career, you need to survive, you need to afford food for, and sustenance and a shelter. And if we get to luckily do it through some sort of creative process, then so be it. And that's fantastic. And I wouldn't have it any other way. That's why I say I feel like I've made it, in the sense where, like, the journey just feels like I'm headed somewhere. But that's why we do it. And it's kind of that simple. And if you're not doing it for that reason, then there's probably need to check yourself.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say on that is that if you are making music, you're doing creative things and doing things for money, it's a very, very dangerous, only for the money. You're doing things only for the money. It's a very, very dangerous trade, because what you often will be doing, and without knowing it until it's happening, is you're trading the love you have for it for money, and you lose the love you have for it. And that can be a real big bummer. So it's always, I always tell people to be careful about that.
What else we got?
Alkaline Wave asked a question that I have an answer for, but I realize you probably have a great answer for too. Any advice for new studio owners doing mostly hip hop? And if I'm obviously I can't ask follow-up questions, but if the question is, hey, I'm running a commercial studio, any advice? The only thing I would say, and then please give your thoughts as someone who's run studios, think of yourself not as much in the music business as in the client management rental business, because it is much more about booking time, managing clients, getting paid, doing billing than you think it is if you've not done it before. The commercial studio business is a part of the music business, but it's a rental business, I think, more than anything else, a client management rental business. And so those relationships are much more important, and having consistent clients and things like that becomes the important thing. Do you have thoughts on that?
No, just Kid Cutler's response is hilarious. Low latency auto-tune and room for crew. That's it. Yeah. That's it in a nutshell. I actually have a lot of thoughts.
Please.
damn, yeah, I was a studio owner, and I didn't treat it like how you said, and it failed. So the studio itself failed, and me as a solo engineer became successful. So decide which one you want. Are you using the studio as a platform for yourself to develop your engineering skills, or do you want to bring a suite of rooms to a community to give access to low latency autotune, for example, and creative, just creative space for however many people want to show up. I didn't know why we built a studio for any other reason but for me to get good. So we didn't make money because I didn't book time. I didn't block out time for things that were just to make money. I blocked out time for things that I found interesting and wanted to, align on and develop my craft through. So I would get the same people back in. If they couldn't afford a fourth day, but we weren't done, I would go to my dad and be like, we need to finish this. So I'm giving them a day for free. And he'd be like, no, how we can't keep the lights on that way. I'd be like, if the record doesn't get finished and come out, then how, So I was constantly fighting back against that model that you're talking about. So my advice is to pick which one that you're looking to do. Because if you want to be an engineer, don't build your own studio, or build your own studio in your house. And
being an engineer,
these are two different things.
Trying to do anything in the music business is tough enough. Trying to be an engineer is fucking tough, as we talk about a lot. Trying to be an engineer through owning a commercial studio sounds insane to me. Yeah, owning a commercial studio is a very tough business. You got to love that. There's a few people on here I know that watch some of these that run studios in LA. It's tough. It's a really tough business. And it's a lot of not getting paid by people and people blowing your speakers.
I got a call today about a gig that was straight up, like I can't talk about what the gig is, but straight up, you're going to spend a lot of time on this and there is a chance you won't get paid for it. Do you still want to do it? And I was like, yeah, I do. I think I might, just because you love the love of the music, you're just like that. And that's okay. Yeah. But that's only okay because I have other gigs that, are sorting that part out for me, right? Like all these types of calls come in at different times of life, different times of the week, different times of the month. And you can't really, as a studio owner, and that's you kind of can't have that flexibility or the model falls. So pick which one you want is kind of the answer to that. I don't have advice for the studio owners except for what Matt said, which is block out the time, make it sound as good as you can, get great monitors, get an acoustician and a consultant in there so people keep coming back because it's the best room in town. Like, we don't need another studio that's halfway there. We need studios that are there and they sound great.
There you go. Noah, I work at Conway. It's a hospitality business. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I mean, some of my favorite studios to work at, like I've been talking about going out to London. Some of my favorite studios in London don't actually sound the best. It's just that the staff is great and they're easy to deal with. And if something goes wrong, it gets done quickly.
But what if it was both?
Yeah, of course. That would be the ideal. Of course.
Yeah, and we don't have that many of those, so let's get some of those.
Yeah. So what you're saying to this specific person is, can you please make your room sound really good?
And be cool. Yeah.
And be cool about it. A somewhat related question. I forget how to say the name. Derez. Do you believe that? This is sort of an odd question because I don't know, maybe it's something that you said at some point, I don't know. Do you believe that engineering is the, quote, most financially stable space in the industry?
No.
Yeah, I don't think it is. No. I don't think it is at all.
I think it's the least for most.
Engineering is a very tough part, and it's something that you've talked about a lot. You talked about the conversation stuff. Back when you were doing events, you were doing a lot for engineers specifically, so you can speak on it much more than I can as I interrupt you to say what I think. But it's,
I can reframe the question to be a better question.
Reframe it.
I don't know if there's a way, actually. I'm a little bit...
Here's my perspective on engineering as someone who is not primarily a recording engineer, is that, or a mix engineer. It's really tough. I think engineering as a gig is so has been so tied to commercial studios, as we talked about in the commercial studio business, because so many people have Apollos and SM7s, or have, home rigs like this, or home rigs like you have. The commercial studio business has gone down, so the need for full-time engineers or staff at these studios has gone down tremendously. So the idea of being an engineer, a recording engineer, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know if anybody tracks it, but those numbers have to continue to go down and down and down, or have been going down for years. And so the value of great engineers hasn't gone away, but the availability of job openings, like infrastructure, has gone down a ton. So I think engineering in particular is a very tough.
I don't fully agree, because independent engineers are finding their way into the rooms with producers, right? So
yeah, it might be true.
Producer, a lot of producers have their own engineers. So that, maybe they have a team of producers, so they need a team of engineers, and then they have like the head engineer that runs the studios for, a producer that has 3 studios and 6 producers signed to them. I think there's ways in. I think the traditional,
definitely.
So this is how I want to come at this, is when it comes to mixers, because yes, it can become stable at a certain point, because when I think what if it's in reference to anything I've said, I think the reason why I said what I said about the stability factor is that at some point, the majority of the records that I worked on, that I was hired to mix, came out. Therefore, they have to then pay for them. Versus when I'm talking about the production, the speculative nature of the production, at the last minute, the production can be scratched and no one gets paid for it. So I noticed the trajectory in my career, in my life, that I was getting paid more consistently for mixing. Now, this is after a long time of not getting paid for mixing, right? So, or getting paid very little bit, barely enough to sustain. So stable wouldn't be the word that I would talk. I would say consistent at some point. So this is what I mean. Why it's hard to get to that level is I would say there are 5 people mixing a lot of the music that is highly successful. And then there are 15 mixers mixing a lot of the rest of it.
I love this breakdown.
Right? There are 5 people that are mixing most of the big records that we hear. And then there are 15.
Do you have those 5 in mind, or you're just
what up, Tume?
5?
Yeah, I have the 5 in mind: Serban, Manny, Spike, Tom Elmhurst, and I want to say Tony's in that crew. Right? Those are 5 people that are mixing so much of the music we listen to on a regular basis. And then there's 15 others. One of them just jumped in the chat, Alex Tume. Alex is in the group. Bane's in the group, right? Like there's 15 people, probably I would say, that are mixing and I'm not going to list everybody. I could write a list down and, and I can have positive things to say about all of them, and they're all working really hard. But there's probably tens of, and Jason should be in that top 5 right now too. Sorry. But there are tens of thousands of people that want to be doing it, and that's what I'm saying. So the consistency comes when you hit maybe that top 20, top 50. You're like, oh, and even then, it's still really hard. Yeah, and I thanks Alex and everyone for doubling down. Jason, Joshua, for sure, top 5.
Yeah, absolutely,
slaying the game right now.
And it's important for people to understand that are coming into it that mix engineers, when you get to the point where you have consistent work, that's the most financially stable in the narrow place that we're talking about. But also, as you and I have talked about, you don't get the same potential back end, although, now you can get a point on things and that sort of thing. But the potential back end is if you're a producer or a songwriter, where those people don't get paid nearly as consistently. Songwriters generally don't get paid at all until a song comes out and generates money. That's why they sign publishing deals. So companies give them advances to live until they start generating royalties. Producers get advances, but also they're sort of like in between an engineer and a songwriter in terms of their revenue stream. But you're absolutely right that certainly in my life, there are times where I won't get any money for a month or two just because I'm getting paid on a project, but the money won't show up for a couple months, or I'm just writing a ton of songs and things don't get cut, or things get cut a year later or something like that. So in terms of consistent income, engineering is potentially much more stable, whereas for long-term back-end could be. It's important for people to understand the structural differences between.
I made a lot more money 2 months ago than I made last month.
Yeah.
So then I got to be better at saving money and caring about that, right? So there's a push and pull there too.
Less champagne, John. Less champagne.
I know that is the key, isn't it? Yeah.
That shit can get expensive, bro. You go. Pop
I want to touch before we move on. I want to touch something that Alex just wrote in the chat, because I fuck with this hard, and I'm putting it into practice on my end, and I'm sure he is as well. We all got to work less and charge more, so people are in the mix. So more people are in the mix. Like if someone can't hit my budget, I have Ingmar do it, or I'm going to have Josh do it as he comes up, right? Like or if I just think someone is really much better for the gig, and they're more affordable at this point, I'm going to send it their way, because more people need to work, and more people need to get the reps in at high level and get feedback from their release, right? There's reps of practicing songs that like maybe 100 to 1,000 people hear. Then there's the second level of reps that like hundreds of thousands to millions of people hear. So you're getting real-time feedback that people are even liking the songs that you're that you're a part of. Yeah. And so we have to level up engineers in that way too. And so I love that Alex said that, because I feel that, and I'm definitely doing it. Which sometimes is hard, because sometimes I love the records that are coming through at a lower price point, but to value myself and my peers like Alex at a certain place, I have to say no.
Well, this is something that is great for people like you and Alex and me, although I'm not a mixer for the most part, or a pure mixer. It is important to look out for the community, because the role that we have in the industry is very, very competitive and can easily turn into people undercutting each other. And so I think it's really beautiful that Alex comes on here. I hung out with him in New York. You guys are close, talking to Baines, talking to all these other people that are great young mixers, although hugely accomplished mixers, young compared to the people that we looked up to when we were teenagers. But that everybody's looking out for each other, and there really is a community of people and that are, positively trying to impact each other, coming up and
I would put
peer group.
Just so someone, I was going to say, because someone's saying Ali's in that other 15. Ali is definitely in the list, but he's not in the top 5 because he's not consistently on the Hot 100. He's not consistently there like the other people that I've mentioned that are there every week. Something is hitting in that realm for them. So Ali is one of the best in the game. Shout out. I mean, one of my favorite, one of my top 3. Like he's the best, but he's still young. He will be there. We will be there. Right. That's how I'm feeling the slow growth trajectory for engineers. I don't think it's as fast as, oh, you produced a hit. So now you're at the top of the game, and then you're going to get all these records. Like as an engineer, as a mix engineer, if you get one hit, people start coming to you for things, but they're not coming to you that consistently. Like Rob Kanelski, amazing mixer, did Billie Eilish. Well, Rob is now consistently getting work from that kind of aesthetic. And then because of that, another one of those artists will have success and bring him up with it. But he's now consistently working. He's been consistently working for a while, but because of Billy, he is now even more stable in there. But he is not going to be in the top 5 until he has 10 Billies, like Serban has had 100. You know what I mean? Like there's levels to the game, even at the high level. That's why I say there's 15 others that are very consistently working and making stable income. That's where this conversation
We're not talking about how good someone is or their skill set. We're talking about their level of career success thus far. And a lot of these people that I think are the best. I mean, again, I don't want to go names of who's better than others, but there are people in that other 15 that I think are the best mixers. They just are younger, and so haven't had 2 decades of success yet. But presumably they will.
Yeah.
Oh, I like this one from WaltJ. What's the biggest change or improvement to your workflow this year, 2021? You got any workflow things that you? I'll say real quick. The one that I did, and it was after talking to you. We made a clip out of it as well. Taking audio movers to my phone to reference mixes rather than bouncing things, put it on my phone. Again, workflows, just speed alone. Putting audio movers on my mix bus, pressing mute, listening off my phone, listening off a laptop has sped up my referencing mixes process immensely. It's probably saved me hours and hours now because instead of bouncing it, sending it, putting it to the notes, taking it into my car, whatever, like I just do audio movers onto my phone, and that's sped up my workflow immensely.
That was going to be my answer too. That side of it, and then the with clients, just like even before a bounce, sometimes just hit them up through text. Like, are you around to listen to where I got it? And we just listen down, make a few notes, and they live with a bounce. And by the next bounce, it's usually done. So the whole streaming added to the workflow is really. I mean, I would say that was last year's.
Yeah, it was this year for me because you told me last year about it.
Yeah. That's a great question. That's one of them. Devoting very specific time to mixing is probably the routine X amount of hours to go hardcore and then dinner and try not to work after. Really like the allotting of time has got me more focused, and I'm mixing faster because of it. I'm not tinkering as much. So that's part of it. Also, so there you go.
I was just going to say something I noticed friends of mine that have had kids recently. One of the things that they say is that because their time immediately becomes limited because you're spending a lot more time with your child and your family. They get a lot more focused in the time that they have to work. And so I've been trying to do a version, trying to simulate that. I don't have kids, but trying to simulate that where I go, okay, I have these next 2 hours. I'm going to work like crazy. There's actually a great podcaster, Lex Friedman, who has an amazing podcast. It's unbelievable. One of the best sort of broad-based intellectual podcasts. But he did a video of his daily routine, and it's insane, where it's like, I do this for 30 minutes and then I have 3 hours of nonstop work, and then I do 30 minutes of this, and then I eat this, and then I do 4 hours of work, and then I do this, and then I'm done. I'm not ready to do that because I want to do wild, spontaneous shit and just do whatever I want a lot of the time because I'm selfish and I can be. But the more you can regiment your time and really focus, I think almost everybody I've ever met could improve their workflow by just instituting a more focused time when they're going to work and just be more disciplined.
Yeah, so that's what I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. There were a lot of questions about, and I realized we haven't really done a lot on this, a lot about time-based effects, verbs, delays. There's been some specific things, questions about things you mixed. We could go into specific questions maybe. Is it worth doing a whole episode on that at some point? I don't know if you have thoughts.
We got 20 minutes. Let's ask a question about something I mixed.
Okay. The Free Black record or EP.
Long ago.
Yeah. Do you remember anything about the vocals, reverbs, effects on that? Somebody asked about that.
Too long ago.
Remember. Too long ago.
Don't remember.
Great sounding project.
Thank you.
Apologies to Ratchet Sued. We John would have to go back and look at that, but
no idea. Yeah.
No idea. How about Writer by Mariba? I don't know how to say that. Mariba. General approach to, Nuga asked, general approach to lead vocal reverb, love the one on Writer.
I love that. I love that too. That's probably the Seventh Heaven Percasti, but it's just about that, that backdrop that drapes behind, because she's focused and dry, but then there's this lush long, right? Because the groove is really dreamy, right? The whole thing is just wavy and just a little bit unsettling, kind of sexy, but kind of, like what she's singing about is different, and it's like, it's just mystery, right? So the verb is trying to create mystery in a pretty loopy track, right? It's just like this sampled string pluck instrument. So the verb's actually doing a lot to give her that dreamy sense. She loves that. I mean, that's kind of her thing. It's like, how do we get it to be focused and dry and audible, but also just have this backdrop, this shape that's like bleeding into each other, causing some intonation issues into the verb. I'm probably putting a chorus on the reverb itself, so it detunes left and right subtly. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole soundscape kind of thing for that kind of record, because there's not a lot happening. So there's a lot of space the vocal needs to fill up. And she's so dynamic in her performance, and she goes from what's the just proximity effect, you know, and naturally, and it's good. It feels right. It doesn't feel like improper vocal technique. It feels like that's how it's supposed to be sung. She like closes up her tone on some notes, and you want to let that spray out a little bit more, and you have to automate things up. So, yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit more on the, it sounds a bit like you're saying, let's see, how do I frame this? I think of reverb and time-based effects, chorusing, delaying, all of those things in that space in time after the vocal as relative to how much space you want to fill up. So in a song like that, you're talking about something that creatively it's useful to actually make it a little swimmy and a little detuny, and have the reverb tail go a little bit too long so that it then warbles in with the next line and that sort of thing. And are there times also where you will try to avoid that completely? Like, talk about that as a philosophical thing, like reverb as a and delay as like a time tool.
Yeah. Quick.
Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Oh, there you are. You're back.
I don't hear you anymore.
Okay, I can hear you. Wait, you went away for a second. Can people hear me? Can people hear you? What's happening?
Hello?
Oh, I got you again. I can hear you.
Oh, now you're there. My friend Zach FaceTimed me, even though I'm on Do Not Disturb. Somehow it came through.
Zach.
I know. Ingmar Carlson, my protege. I want to just shout out to answer the question, who's your favorite mixer who is in the top 15? Ingmar's killing it. Just get Ingmar on your mixes right now. Just do it while he's still affordable. I'll put it that way. So when it comes to time-based, I mean, yeah, tempo. Kid Cutler said a tempo dependent. How dense is the production, right? So I'm talking when it comes to that Rider record. I mean, there's not a lot happening in the record. It's an 808 and a sub bass that changes through the chorus and the verse is a different style of bass. And there's a sample plucky string instrument, right? So that's basically it. Yeah. And I'm trying to fill the space, like we're talking about. In a more dense up-tempo record, I mean, I might lean more Kanye and go no verb, right? So you might just want that vocal to be driving it like a rap record, even in a pop song, but that's kind of a rap approach. And a lot of rap, like you've listened to, Click or something on Kanye and Big Sean, there's no verbs on those records, there's nothing. And if it is, it's a throw and it's big and it's bold. So that's the other thing I was going to bring in.
Yeezus is great for that too. Yeezus is masterful with that.
So like, if you're going to use a verb in a context like that, use it bold, like a Travis ad lib or something, just something distorted and big and make a statement with it. I don't, it's all case dependent. I don't really go into a song with an agenda. When it comes to that, it kind of winds up telling me right away. It's pretty clear. I'm really into automating. I don't just put verbs on whole songs and leave them the same ever.
We've talked about printing verbs to then think of them as their own. For so long, again, using consoles, things like that, reverbs get sent to, and then they're just, they're just at zero on the return. But once you actually take the reverb and make it its own track, it certainly has helped me think about it as a specific component in the mix.
Yeah, and when I say I automate, like I'll automate a filter on a verb. So instead of cutting the tail necessarily, if I'm not if I'm not wanting to reduce the volume, I'll just reduce the high end so it goes slower. And like you can make, did that translate?
It translated beautifully.
For the audio only, that's going to be better experience than watching my face. Yeah.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
But, I automate and I treat effects, right? So on a lot of things, I'll duplicate the sound and I'll put the effect right on it. It's very rare. Maybe on a vocal, I'll send to a reverb like that. It's just like the Liquid Sonics, the Seventh Heaven I talked about in the Mariba thing, my Bricasti plugin basically. I'll just send to that and I'll let that do a thing and I'll mute it on things, or I'll bounce it and cut it. But that's more of a overall, just I know this is going to sound good and I'll adjust the time and it's thickening. But I normally for more sound designy things, I duplicate the sound that I want on it and I put it on it and then I'll commit that and then I'll fuck with it. Right. So yeah, that's sound design, right? That's not even, I don't even know if that's mixing necessarily. It's part of it, but to me that's sound design. Yeah. So I do a lot more delays than verbs. So we should talk about I guess why. I think that delays are cooler. I think time-based quick left-right moves versus washed out things are cooler. When you want to put things and give things a sense of space, I think no feedback fast delays are kind of cool. And
I like
slappy,
that a lot.
Slappy,
just have that. It's like stereoizing, but in a particular type of way.
Yeah, with minimal length. I do like putting, if you're talking about like a synth on 1999, like the Prince stabs, like there's no way to do that without putting a verb on the Juno or on the Prophet or whatever. There's just no way. So there's obviously like that reference point of understanding, but I prefer left-right time-based things rather than long verbs. I think it's a bit more modern, and then leave the verbs for the vocal and some dreamy nature to slower tempoed things. But again, this is all case dependent. I'm just like spitting shit out, right?
Yeah.
I don't actually, nothing is everywhere, right? So I've talked about this a lot. I'll repeat myself. I have a very small template that has the Bricasti verb, a mega verb that's super long. Just if I want to do like a weird distorted throw, it has distortion built into it. I have an eighth note, quarter note, half note delay, and an H3000 pitch shifting left and right. And that's it. Oh, I think I have a mono slap in there somewhere too. Yeah. And that's it. And they barely get used. They're just
they're just all available.
All available for a quick idea. But sometimes the idea is just to hear the idea, and then I'll do it more independently. But if I want to just hear what the chorus is going to sound like with an eighth note delay on it, I'll turn it up, put it at 0. Oh, do I like that? Cool. And then I'll do it another way.
I see. So you'll use those as almost like idea generators, and you go, oh, a half note delay is perfect on this, but I'm going to shape it differently and do it. Yeah, gotcha.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of how we've talked about this in earlier episodes. What I do about additive EQ is like I'll use an EQ if it's up there doing subtractive things to see the frequency range that I think I need to boost, but then I'll go to the Spectre and I'll do it. I'll do it with another plugin. So there's idea generator broad stroke moves, and then there's a better tool for that job instead of being lazy and just leaving that 2K boost.
Ooh, this is a really interesting philosophical thing, which I'm now going to steal this from my workflow, which is having a specific set of a minimal set of tools that allow you to quickly try out a lot of things. So something like, just having a Pro Q3, which can do a whole bunch of different things, boosting and cutting and frequency specific things and de-essing and whatever. But then when you use it and you go, okay, this does need a little de-ess and a little bit of boost in 600, then you go get the de-esser that you want and go use Spectre or something like that to boost it. But you don't have to then actually get out the de-esser and Spectre and all that to just try it.
That's every move.
That's fucking great.
That's my game.
That's great. This is like the whoever asked about what's the best workflow thing for 2021. It's going to be this. It's going to be this.
We talk about it a lot, but I have 10 plugins that I use.
Yep. And
I use two of them to do these broad strokes. One of which is the Pro Q3, and the other is the Faraday Limiter from Goodhertz.
Yep.
If I want to see how much I can get, if I want to break apart a sound and see how much I can get out of it, I just take the threshold on the Faraday Limiter and I bring it all the way down, and I just see what's in there. I don't leave it there. I mean, sometimes I do, but I don't leave it there, but I just see what's in there. And then I go, oh, okay, cool. Well, I can get this out of that. Then I don't need it in this other sound. And then we can, and that's how I listen to my arrangements. But I use those two tools.
Let's break that down slowly real quick for the people in the back, as they say. By taking a compressor limiter, and Faraday Limiter is sort of a compressor and limiter and distortion box that's great, by smashing the sound, when you say, see what's in there, what I hear from that is you're basically like, what's going to happen if I go really crazy with the sound? What are the very low things in the dynamics that are getting pulled up into my face? How much of those do I want? You basically get, by compressing the shit out of the sound, distorting it, limiting it, compressing in the sense of squishing the dynamic range, you get a in-your-face picture of all that is in the sound. Yes. And from there, you can make decisions of how much you want to make some of that low volume energy, the dynamic energy, come up, or what might be getting in the way of the sound, if you want to gate things or any of that sort of stuff. You're basically getting a complete picture of the sound by doing something extreme just to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, you want to fast sear the meat, or you want to slow cook it. You got to know what's in there and what you can get out of it, right? So
53 minutes we got a food reference. This is the longest it's ever taken.
That's the longest it's taken. But that's the whole thing, right? So the whole concept is what is in there, right? So if you have a session that has 20, this has happened, 20 synths doing the same part, which is referred to in some world as the same MIDI. Use the same MIDI and you bounce it through 20 sounds, and
it's also known as a mess.
A mess. Theoretically, you're going to go through all of them, and it's a workflow thing. Let's just get the same profit. Let's get all the presets and whatever, and then you're going to go through and see which one sounds the best. If there is 20 doing the same thing, I bet you only need one, maybe two, right? Yeah. So that's where this kind of started, which is like, okay, well, why is this super buzzy one in there? Oh, you didn't know how to get the high end out of this? Well, I can get that with an exciter. So I'm going to mute this one now, and I'm going to have a clear version of one sound that sounds like your 20 without all the phasing issues that make it sound like it's in the background somewhere instead of an actual part. You know, Prince didn't layer 20 sounds, and his shit sounds bigger than everybody. So, you know, it's one sound doing the part, but it's full spectrum. Yeah. So the idea behind this is, how do I make every sound full spectrum? And then by doing that, you're going to realize that not every sound in the mix is going to fit on a lot of these overproduced records. But that's okay, because no one's going to miss it if you're giving that the full spectrum that they were getting out of multiple layers out of one, right? It's very rare that I have multiple kicks in a mix at this point when someone gives me three. It's very rare. I just listen to what they created out of three, and I can make it out of obviously the first kick that they chose. You know, you can tell it's the first kick because it was doing most of the job. But then there are other engineering sound design tricks that you can use to get them to do what they're doing. So that's been a 10-year workflow for me, which is break shit apart and see what's in it. That's not a new thing. I'm just finding a bit more sharper tools in the shed.
You're refining.
I'm refining, and there's more consistency in my monitoring in the last 6 years that I've been at the gift shop, and I'm just getting to these desired results faster with more confidence. But this has been kind of my practice since I got going.
That's great. That's really big. I'm gonna steal a bunch of that stuff.
Just turn every parameter that you. This is a good way to think about it. Every parameter that you add on any tool that you have, turn it all the way up. Always.
Yeah.
No, I maybe do a subtle move here and there. I do a lot of little subtle moves, but I know the essence of what that subtle move is doing because I heard it at full blast.
There's definitely something that
turn your speakers down for most of these things. You will. You'll hurt yourself and you'll fatigue, and then any decision you make after that won't be relevant because you've
we're not responsible for ruptured eardrums by randomly turning up a kick drum 25 dB right away. Hilarious. Yeah, it's something that I heard very early on, and it applies to non-music things as well. Although I guess it's mostly maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But the idea of, if you want to make an EQ move, if you want to boost a little high end, boost way more than you think, and then bring it back down so you know what's happening. Because, it's like a little more. No, go here and then bring it down. I do that with tempo as well when writing songs. It's like, it should come up like 1 BPM. It's like, I'm going to turn it up 5 and we're going to listen to it uncomfortably fast and then bring it back down. Or I'm going to turn it up 10 and then bring it back down. That's a big part of this process.
Same thing with pitching drums around. Go far. Go down 4 on a kick where it's floppy and doesn't sound like anything, and then bring it back up one by one. If you're pretty sure that the way it was delivered is not at the right pitch, go down too far.
Yeah, you want to, because if you're trying to get more of something, you want to know where too far is, so then you know what range you're in. That's what it is philosophically.
It's really audio chemistry, right? You got to get the thing to explode and go too far before you understand where it actually has its equilibrium. We have to break things. Yeah. And that's kind of just how I'm thinking about it always.
Yeah. Break stuff. Yeah. Break your gear and blow your ears out. That's what we're saying. Please don't do that. Let's see. There's one other. Heavy background vocal layers treatment in pop world. We've talked a little bit about this before. I like this topic because I posted a bunch of stories the other day of songs that I worked on, and people were asking about some of the One Direction stuff and gang vocals. And I was remembering on some of those tracks that when doing lots and lots of layered background vocals, there's so many different ways to do it. And I like to think of them in different categories. Like gang vocals will be a certain type of sound and a certain aesthetic. Doubled, tripled, quadrupled background vocals will be a certain aesthetic. Multiple lead vocals or multiple lead vocals will be a certain aesthetic. And rather than thinking of them as just lead and background vocals, there's so many different ways to treat these things. Do you generally get, you don't do a lot of like big straight pop stuff, but presumably you've done lots of things with gang vocals and background vocals. Do you?
Yesterday, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have thoughts on those things, or treating background vocals, pop layered vocals?
Again, there's nothing that's always, but a lot of the time I'll get geeky just because we have 1 minute, and I'll just be like a little bit prescriptive here.
Let's go.
I cut a lot of like between 1 and 2K out of background vocals because that's where I like my lead vocal to sit. So I just think about where the lead's sitting, and I'm going to take out the opposite stuff. And I line up your consonants, line up your shit. I'll move a couple of things, but as a vocal producer, I think line up your consonants, mute unnecessary breaths, so there's not a bunch of stacked, odd, out of time breaths. That's not pro. It's not cool. It's not indie. It's just not. It's just called sloppy. Just get rid of it. You don't need all of it. And glue them together somehow. Use some sort of saturator or a quick slap effect that adds a little bit of space, or like I use a limiter a lot, and I just try to bring them all together as a group. You want them to kind of sound precise and tight, but also a bit more ambiguous than the lead. So I'll
little multi-band compression can be nice for that too, or just sort of like makes it indistinct.
Yeah, because of phasing, really. It's actually doing like just kind of negative things. That's a good place for that. And also oversampling. Oversampling takes transients away from things. So I stopped using it on really direct sounding sounds like the lead vocal or drums, and not on the mix bus either, but I will on background vocals. It adds a little washiness to it. Sometimes I'll do that to ambient keyboards. So oversampling is cool for that. Anything to obscure the transients just subtly so they don't interact with the lead. That's my best. I'll like do some dynamic EQ on the top end, even down to like 4 or 5K on a shelf, just so it's out of the way of the lead, just enough where it's dancing just subtly below. You can sidechain the background vocal bus in this. You can key it right to the lead vocal. So when the lead vocal's in, the top is going down a little bit. So you can kind of glue them together to the lead in that way.
Thinking of the lead vocal, wherever the lead vocal speaks, which is one of those music terms, wherever you're hearing the note or the presence or the consonants of the lead vocal, play with removing that either dynamically or just with a shelf or whatever on the background vocals to help the lead pop out more is a nice technique.
Yeah. Someone saying like having the lead consonant and cutting the consonants on the other ones. I don't like that from the backgrounds. I don't like that as much. Like I've noticed it in productions. I like, because I mix the acapella sometimes. Like I'll, after a bunch of broad strokes, I'll just mute all the instruments and mix the acapella. And you can hear that stuff. It's subtle. But if they're there, clip gain down and controlled and not as punchy,
just line them up
into them. Just line them up and fade into them a little bit. I think it's a better, more punchy approach. You have more control over the consistency of the backgrounds. I wouldn't cut them out. I think that sounds lame, honestly. When it's all mixed. Yeah. When you're not relying on a limiter in your production rough, where you're kind of obscuring everything anyway, when there's a bit more transparency to the mix, you'll notice that stuff, and that doesn't sound cool.
Yeah, and also it's always song dependent too. So use your ears. Yeah. The annoying answer. Yeah. John, love you. Another good hour. Call me after this. I want to know what's going on with you.
Yeah, I'll call you.
Thank you guys. I'll be on the Discord after. Peace.